What if the only difference between an ordinary vagrant hitching a ride in a freezing freight train and, the celebrated business partner of the great Thomas Edison was just a single, invisible thought?
Right, it sounds almost too simple.
Yeah. But today, we are looking at a blueprint that claims human consciousness can literally be weaponized to manipulate physical reality. Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here for this one.
Our mission today is to unpack a foundational text of modern success philosophy, which is Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. We're really going hunting for this legendary Carnegie secret mentioned in the book's preface.
Oh, yeah, the Carnegie secret.
Exactly. We're going to explore exactly how intangible, deeply held thoughts can be transmuted into physical results. So we're pulling apart vivid historical stories from the text to extract the actual psychological mechanics you can apply to your own ambitions.
And I think it's important to note right off the bat, while the title says rich, this manual is really for individual achievement in whatever specific field you are pursuing. Okay.
Totally. It's not just about money.
What's fascinating here is the origin of all this. Andrew Carnegie, who was, one of the wealthiest men in human history, essentially challenged Napoleon Hill to spend 20 grueling years researching this formula.
20 years. Just think about that.
Yeah, a massive undertaking. Carnegie realized that massive success was being treated like a mystical lottery ticket. Like people thought you either had the magic touch or you just didn't.
Right, like it's purely innate.
Exactly. So he wanted Hill to analyze hundreds of the world's most successful people to prove that achievement is actually a repeatable process. It is a definable mechanism that anyone can operate if they just understand the levers.
Okay, let's unpack this. If success is a mechanism, what is the fuel powering the engine? According to the text, the core driver of the Carnegie secret is something defined as a burning desire.
A burning desire. Yeah, not just a wish.
Right, not just a casual hope. And the book illustrates this with an incredibly vivid historical narrative, the story of Edwin C. Barnes.
Oh, I love the Barnes story.
So good. So, Barnes had a singular, unshakable obsession. He didn't want to work for the great inventor Thomas Edison. He wanted to work with him, like as an equal business partner.
Which is a wildly audacious goal when you consider his starting position, honestly.
Absolutely wild. I mean, he didn't know Edison, and he didn't even have the train fare to get to Edison's laboratory in New Jersey.
Most individuals facing those circumstances allow logic to dictate their reality.
Sure. Yeah, they'd just give up.
Right. The immediate environment screams, I have no money, I have no network, therefore this objective is impossible. And the desire is extinguished before it can ever take root.
But Barnes just ignores the physical limitations entirely. He travels by freight train, riding blind baggage, meaning he literally hid in the baggage car to avoid paying a fare.
He was completely determined.
Yeah. And he arrives at Edison's laboratory looking like an absolute tramp, just disheveled. Yet Edison later noted that while Barnes looked like a vagabond, he carried the thoughts of a king.
Which is a crucial distinction the book really wants us to understand here.
How so?
Well, Edison was surrounded by brilliant engineers, well-funded investors, savvy businessmen every single day.
Right, people with actual credentials.
Exactly. So why give the time of day to a guy who just hopped off a freight train? Edison himself noted that it wasn't Barnes's physical appearance that won him over, it was his psychological posture.
His psychological posture, that's a great phrase.
Yeah, Edison could see in Barnes's face an absolute determination to stand by his desire until he succeeded.
Okay, let me use an analogy here because applying this to a modern context really highlights how crazy this was.
Go for it.
Barnes is essentially the ultimate modern startup founder. He had zero capital, a non-existent network, and no formal education, right?
Literally starting from below zero.
Exactly. So taking a menial job sweeping floors in Edison's office, which is what he initially got, is the equivalent of a founder today taking a job in the mailroom of a massive tech conglomerate just to breathe the same air as the CEO. He didn't get the partnership on day one. He got a broom.
He got a broom, yeah. But he didn't view the broom as a defeat. If we connect this to the bigger picture of the Carnegie secret, Barnes used those months of sweeping floors to align his subconscious with his ultimate goal.
He was just biding his time.
Precisely. He was constantly analyzing the environment, waiting for an opening. He maintained his psychological posture, and then opportunity finally arrived. Though, as Hill points out, opportunity often arrives disguised as misfortune or temporary defeat.
And it came in the form of a really clunky machine, right? The Edison dictating machine, which was later called the Ediphone.
Oh, yes. The machine nobody wanted.
Exactly. Edison's own sales team hated the invention. They looked at it and thought it would be an absolute nightmare to sell. But Barnes looked at this weird machine that nobody else wanted and immediately saw his partnership. He literally told Edison, I can sell this.
And he sold it so successfully that Edison eventually handed him a contract to distribute and market the machine nationwide. The overarching slogan actually became "Made by Edison and installed by Barnes." He quite literally thought himself into a partnership and a massive fortune, proving the core thesis of the text.
Which is that thoughts truly are things.
Exactly. Thoughts are things when they are combined with definiteness of purpose and a burning desire.
So Barnes succeeded because his desire acted as an uncompromising compass. But what happens when you don't possess that obsessive instinct?
That's the trap a lot of people fall into.
Yeah, like what happens when you hit a wall and your desire starts to crack? The text offers a brilliant contrast to Barnes with the heartbreaking story of R.U. Darby and this whole concept of stopping 3 feet from gold.
It remains one of the most powerful cautionary tales about the illusion of failure.
So let's look at it. During the gold rush, Darby's uncle catches gold fever. He heads west, stakes a claim, and miraculously strikes a vein of shining ore.
A huge stroke of luck initially.
Right, but to extract it at scale, they need heavy, expensive machinery. So he quietly covers up the mine, travels back home to Maryland, and raises the capital from relatives and neighbors.
Including young R.U. Darby.
Yes, including him. So they buy the drills, ship them out, and the first cart of ore proves they possess one of the richest mines in Colorado. A few more cars, and they will clear all their debts.
They were standing on the precipice of generational wealth. Just right there.
And then the vein simply vanishes. The gold is gone.
Just gone.
They keep drilling desperately, trying to pick up the vein again, pouring sweat and money into an empty hole, but nothing happens. Finally, the desire runs out.
They just hit their limit.
They quit. They sell all this heavy machinery to a local junk man for a few $100s, and they take the train back home in complete defeat.
But then the junk man does something brilliant.
Yeah, he decides to hire a mining engineer to look at the site. And the engineer calculates that the vein of gold will pick up again exactly 3 feet from where the Darbys had stopped drilling.
3 feet.
They dig 3 feet, find the gold, and the junk man makes millions.
It's just crushing to think about. 3 feet.
Now wait, I have to push back on the book's framing of this. Wasn't this just spectacularly bad luck on Darby's part? I mean, they couldn't have known the gold was there.
Wow.
They were hopeful prospectors, not trained geologists, right? Calling it a failure of mindset feels a bit harsh when they really just lacked technical knowledge.
This raises an important question about how we define failure versus temporary defeat.
Okay.
Yes, they lacked the geological expertise, but the real failure wasn't the disappearing vein of gold.
What was it then?
The fatal mistake, the mindset failure, was their decision to quit before seeking expert counsel. They let a temporary setback masquerade as permanent failure.
So they just assumed they knew everything about the situation.
Exactly. They assumed their localized knowledge was the absolute limit of reality.
I see. The mistake was treating their own ignorance as an insurmountable wall rather than just, a missing piece of data they could have sourced from someone else.
Precisely. Failure is described throughout Hill's work as a trickster with a cunning sense of irony. It takes great delight in tripping you up right when success is almost within reach.
Like 3 feet away.
Right. But the true value of the Darby narrative is his reaction to the trauma of that failure.
Because he didn't just give up forever.
No, Darby spent years paying back every single dollar his family had invested. He eventually recouped his massive loss by pivoting to a completely different industry, which was selling life insurance.
He weaponized his own failure. He made a vow to himself, realizing he had stopped 3 feet from gold in the dirt, and decided he would never stop, just because a potential client said no when he asked them to buy insurance.
He used the phantom memory of that gold mine to fuel an unstoppable persistence.
And he eventually became one of the very few people of his era to sell over $1 million in life insurance annually.
He extracted the psychological lesson from the physical defeat.
So, okay, Barnes succeeded through sheer raw instinct, and Darby learned his lesson through agonizing trial and error. But relying on instinct or waiting for a traumatic failure isn't really a sustainable strategy for the rest of us, is it?
No, definitely not. It's too unpredictable.
So how do we artificially engineer this level of focus? Hill actually created a protocol, a literal blueprint to transmute abstract desire into physical reality.
This is where the philosophy transitions from theoretical to highly practical. The text outlines 6 distinct steps.
Looking at these 6 steps, The first four read like highly effective, but fairly standard business advice.
Yeah, they're very structural.
Step one is to fix the exact amount of money or the specific goal in your mind. Vagueness is the enemy. Step two is determining exactly what you intend to give in return, because the universe doesn't offer something for nothing.
You have to provide value.
Right. Step three is establishing a definitive timeline, like a firm date. And step four is creating a detailed plan and executing it instantly, regardless of whether you feel ready or not.
And all of that makes perfect logical sense. It kills procrastination.
Absolutely. But steps 5 and 6 are where Hill veers into the radical psychology you hinted at earlier.
Steps 5 and 6 are the mechanism that programs the engine. Step 5 requires writing down a clear, concise statement incorporating the goal, the timeline, the exchange, and the plan.
And step 6 demands that you read this written statement aloud, twice daily, once before going to sleep, and once upon waking up.
And there's a crucial emotional component, too.
Right. Furthermore, as you read it, you are instructed to see, feel, and believe yourself already in possession of the goal. Okay, I'm going to ask the skeptical question on behalf of the listener here.
Go ahead.
Repeating a statement out loud and literally feeling the money in your hands, doesn't that cross the line into magical thinking? It sounds like we're just encouraging delusional daydreaming.
It is the most common critique of this philosophy. But if we look closer at the underlying mechanics, it is deeply grounded in cognitive psychology.
Really? How so?
The book refers to this as the principle of autosuggestion. It isn't magic. It is a deliberate method for conditioning the subconscious mind.
Okay, but how does repeating a phrase actually change your physical reality, practically speaking? Walk me through the mechanism.
Well, the conscious mind acts as a rigid filter. It rejects information that contradicts your current reality or deeply held beliefs.
Like protecting your ego.
Sort of, yeah. If you fundamentally believe you will always struggle financially, your conscious mind will literally filter out opportunities for wealth because they cause cognitive dissonance.
Wow, so you wouldn't even notice them.
Exactly. By forcing repetition, reading the statement aloud during the transitional brain states of waking and sleeping and injecting deep emotion, you are systematically bypassing that conscious filter.
I get it. You're hacking your brain's reticular activating system.
Exactly. You are handing a new set of instructions directly to the subconscious.
Like how? Give me a concrete example.
Think about it like buying a new car. You buy a specific model, and suddenly you see that exact car everywhere on the highway.
Oh, totally. All the time.
Those cars were always there, but your brain was filtering them out as irrelevant noise. Autosuggestion forces your subconscious to prioritize your goal.
By creating what Hill calls a money consciousness.
Precisely. You train your brain to instantly flag the conversations, the people, and the environmental shifts that harmonize with your objective.
So you aren't conjuring gold out of thin air. You are simply removing the blinders so you can finally see the gold that is already in your environment.
That's a perfect way to summarize it.
But Hill is adamant that just reciting the words like a robot is useless, right? The subconscious only responds to thoughts that are heavily emotionalized, which explains why the desire must be burning.
Emotion is the ink that writes the code. Without it, the subconscious just rejects the instruction.
Okay, but if autosuggestion is the programming language that builds reality, what introduces viruses into that code?
That's a great question.
Because according to the text, the ultimate saboteur is fear. Fear is the friction that brings this entire transmutation process to a grinding halt.
Hill identifies 6 basic fears that humanity suffers from, which act as destructive autosuggestion.
Wow.
The fear of poverty, the fear of criticism, ill health, loss of love, old age, and death.
Let's focus on the fear of criticism, because I think that is the deadliest one for the modern listener.
Oh, without a doubt.
I mean, how many brilliant ideas, startups, or career pivots are still born because we are terrified of what our colleagues will say on LinkedIn or what our family will think?
The fear of criticism is insidious because it intercepts your desire before it ever reaches the subconscious.
It kills it in the cradle.
Exactly. It makes you artificially dilute your goals. You start filtering your blueprint to ensure it meets the approval of your neighbors, completely corrupting the instructions you are handing to your own brain.
Wow. And the direct result of allowing these fears to dictate your thoughts is a catastrophic lack of persistence.
Which brings us back to the Darby story. When fear hits, you quit digging.
Right. So what is the antidote? How do you immunize the subconscious against these fears?
The text states that persistence is the direct antidote to the fear of failure.
Just pushing through it.
Yes. Hill writes that persistence is to the character of man what carbon is to steel. It changes the molecular structure of your ambition, making it unbreakable. A quitter never wins, and a winner never quits.
But sheer willpower is an exhaustible resource. How do you maintain that persistence? When the market crashes, your funding is pulled, and the world is just beating you down.
It's incredibly difficult to do alone.
Right, you're reading your statement every morning, but you keep hitting brick walls.
That's why you construct an external support system. This is where the book introduces its most powerful architectural concept for success: the mastermind.
Here's where it gets really interesting. How does the book define a mastermind?
It is the coordination of knowledge and effort between two or more people working in perfect harmony toward a definite purpose.
Two or more people. Okay.
The underlying premise is that no individual possesses sufficient experience, education, or native ability to ensure the accumulation of massive success entirely alone.
Let's use another analogy to visualize this. Think about the mastermind as a mental supercomputer.
I like where this is going.
If your individual brain is a single processor, it has a finite amount of computing power, right? It has inherent blind spots. It gets fatigued. It gets overwhelmed by fear.
Exactly. It has limits.
But a mastermind group links multiple diverse processors together. When you coordinate with others in a spirit of absolute harmony, you aren't just adding your intelligence together.
Yeah, exponential.
You are networking them to create a third intangible, wildly powerful supermind. It gives you access to a level of computing power and resilience that you could never access in isolation.
That is a phenomenal way to conceptualize the mechanism, and it was the literal strategy of the Titans Hill studied.
Like who?
Well, Andrew Carnegie didn't know everything about the metallurgy of manufacturing steel, but he surrounded himself with a mastermind group of about 50 men who did.
Ah, so he outsourced this specialized knowledge.
Exactly. Henry Ford was famously mocked for his lack of formal education. He wiped out the handicaps of illiteracy and poverty by allying himself with some of the greatest minds of his generation.
Like Thomas Edison.
People like Edison, Harvey Firestone, and Luther Burbank. He absorbed their vibrations of thought, their specialized knowledge, and most importantly, their unshakable persistence.
It's the ultimate network effect. You don't need to possess all the specialized knowledge in the world. You just need to organize a group that does.
And you must maintain perfect harmony within that network, because if there is ego or friction, the network crashes.
The processors can't share data.
Harmony is the required bandwidth. Through that mastermind, your persistence is outsourced and sustained.
Right, so when your individual processor wants to shut down from the fear of criticism, the group pulls you forward.
When your specific plan fails, the network helps you calculate a new one. As we learned from Darby, temporary defeat is not permanent failure. It just means your current plan has a flaw.
So you leverage the mastermind to architect the better plan.
Precisely.
So what does this all mean for you, listening right now? Let's trace the massive journey we've just taken through this philosophy.
We covered a lot of ground today.
We really did. We started with Edwin C. Barnes, who proved that a burning desire and an unyielding psychological posture could bypass a total lack of resources, essentially willing a partnership with Thomas Edison into existence.
And we examined the tragedy of R.U. Darby.
Right, who let temporary defeat trick him into quitting just 3 feet from gold, but who ultimately weaponized that pain to build an empire of persistence in the insurance industry.
We then decoded the 6 practical steps to transmute desire into reality, really exploring the deep psychology of autosuggestion.
We learned how to bypass the conscious filter and train the reticular activating system to spot the opportunities hidden in our everyday environment.
And finally, we explored the defense mechanisms required to protect that programming.
We discussed how fears, especially the fear of criticism, corrupt your mental blueprint, and how constructing a mastermind network can provide the unbreakable persistence of steel.
If there is one unifying thread weaving through all these historical narratives and psychological mechanisms, it is the profound realization that thoughts are things.
They really are.
Your physical environment, your circumstances, and your opportunities are actively adapting to the nature of the dominating thoughts that you permit to occupy your mind.
Which brings us back to the invisible architecture we mentioned at the very beginning. This isn't about physical bricks and mortar. It's about the blueprints you are feeding your subconscious.
The blueprints are everything.
So I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over today as you go about your routine.
Let's hear it.
If your subconscious mind is a tireless builder, constantly taking the blueprints of your thoughts and working 24/7 to construct your physical reality out of them, what exactly is your mind constructing right now while you aren't paying attention? Take a hard audit of your passive thoughts today, those silent assumptions running in the background, and ask yourself, would you really want to live in the house those thoughts are building?